Hello everyone and welcome back to Prodigal Overland. My name's Brad. If you're new here, welcome. In today's video, we're going to take another look at some of the 4x4 systems that come with a Jeep Grand Cherokee, specifically the WK2 model, and it does perhaps right now, as of the filming, seem like these same systems will be in the new L version. So we see and get a lot of questions, and I see a lot of comments online, things like, how do I know which 4x4 system I have? Does it really matter what kind of one I get, whether it's Quadra-Trac I versus Quadra-Trac II versus Quadra-Drive? So I wanted to kind of put out another video on this, specifically because when we were out in Arkansas at Hot Springs, we had two Jeeps out that had the Quadra-Drive II system and two with the Quadra-Trac II system, and it really became very apparent just the practical, real-world differences between those two systems. We did already kind of put a video out like this. I will link it up above when we were in Texas, but I really felt like it was important to get this information out there to you guys because I think it kind of is expanding how these drive systems behave out on the trail. And honestly, there's not a ton of comparisons or information out there. And I, for sure, on this trip, really felt like there was a very noticeable difference between the two systems. And we've got like happy crows that are chiming in on this. Another thing to kind of note about this video is you're not going to see a real world comparison of Quadra-Trac I. So that would be like a Laredo model or something like that. We actually have not yet had someone out with us that had just a standard Quadra-Trac I system. But just a thing to note, really the only differences between Quadra-Trac I and Quadra-Trac II are the transfer case. The Quadra-Trac II gives you that 2-speed, or there's a low range transfer case, but as far as how the system at the axles behave, it's the same system. Another thing I want to do in this video is compare the systems in a WK2 with just a basic open differential 4x4 system. So if you're brand new to off-roading and you're not sure what the heck I'm talking about, stick around because I'm going to be kind of laying those systems out sequentially for you guys so that you can really see how these things will behave in the real world and why it matters or doesn't with which system you get, really based on how much you get out off-road. So I hope you guys find this video helpful, and let's get going. So let's start off by looking at one of the most basic four-wheel drive systems you can get. So this is my buddy Jeff, and this is his Toyota 4Runner. He does have the ability to have four-wheel drive in this for low. This took place, what you're seeing here, took place in the UP, or Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and he's currently got himself in a situation where he is stuck in some mud. What you're about to see here is one of the most beautiful demonstrations of an open differential that we have seen since we've been out off-road. And for those of you watching that don't quite know the difference between, say, an open differential and a vehicle that's got lockers, in an open differential setting, the transfer case has the ability to direct power to both the front axle and rear axle simultaneously. However, it has no ability to direct that power from one side to the other. And as you can see here, as Jeff gets going and then eventually gets stuck, he finds himself in a situation where all the power he's generating are basically going to the two wheels that have zero traction. And what you're seeing here is really the main shortcoming of an open differential. Folks with four-wheel drive with an open differential will do fine on level ground, but as soon as you get them in a situation where one wheel is up off the ground or they get a little off camber, in this situation Jeff has probably a nice little mud hole under his front driver, and back rear is up just a little bit. The passenger side rear, is up just a little bit. There's areas of really low traction there, so when he hits the throttle, he's throwing up a lot of mud and rooster tails kind of thing going on. but all the power in this four-wheel drive system is basically taking the path of least resistance. One side is hung up a little bit, the other side's not hung up at all, and so the system is just letting that power go, again, to the path of least resistance, which happens to be the path that doesn't have any traction. And so he is officially stuck. We eventually have to kind of hook up a winch to him and pull him out. But I wanted to show this to you guys at home in case you're not familiar with what an open differential is, or if you're out on the trail and you see someone stuck and you can't figure out quite why they're stuck. Maybe one wheel is really spinning and the other wheels are doing nothing. That's why. What you're going to see in this next clip is our Jeep out at Hot Springs ORV Park, and we're doing a section of trail where there's some ruts and there's some rocks to go over, and it's putting us in situations where one wheel loses traction. And I wanted to show you the difference between, even on our Jeep, how the front axle and the rear axle handle that. The reason is our front axle does not have a locker, does not have that limited slip differential. It behaves very much like an open differential, however, it's got an active braking system in it. And so what you're going to see in this clip is that as I come up, you're gonna see the passenger side tire is gonna kind of turn and stop and turn and stop. And what that is that side is the side that doesn't have traction. And so every time you see it kind of stop, it's those brakes being applied to that side so that the power that the engine's producing can then be redirected to the side that does have traction. Okay, if one side's up, the other side's down. That's kind of, like that. So that is very much the same system that is in the Quadra-Trac II. However, the Quadra-Drive II system, follow me now, the rear has that limited slip differential. And so when you see me, this Jeep, come up and watch my rear tires, and you're gonna notice that it's just a constant kind of churning. It's not that start, stop, start, stop. So let's show you that. Same footage slowed down, and you can really see that front wheel starts and stops, starts and stops. Whereas coming up right here, my back wheel is just gonna kind of just a steady, slow spin, okay? And so really, if we saw the other side of the rear wheel, you're gonna see those wheels are basically turning at the same speed. All right, now here's a Jeep with Quadra-Trac II, which has that basically are open differentials with that active braking. And you're gonna see that both the front and the back really spin.
Towards me.
Wait a minute, hold there, so in case he needs to back up.
Sam, look at me. Over that way, please. I think he stopped at the wrong spot. He's gonna have to back up.
So if you're rocking the Quadra-Trac II and you find yourself in a situation where you kind of hit a bypass, wheels are starting to spin, what you need to do is apply a little bit more throttle, steady throttle, and let the system try to work through whatever issue it has. So here's Buddy in his Jeep. He was actually uncertain whether he had Quadra-Drive II or Quadra-Trac II, which is a question that we get fairly frequently. How can I tell? Well, again, what you're going to be looking for is seeing that wheel spin and then that active braking system kicking in, which leads to kind of that jerky wheel happening on the side without traction, but then the other side gets traction and is able to move through.
You got it.
Keep on the throttle a little bit.
Again, coming up here, this is Raymond and Lee's Jeep. Raymond and Lee have the Quadra-Drive II system. So watch as they go through this obstacle as compared to the other two Jeeps behind them, which have Quadra-Trac II.
on this wall. Ride the wall here. Throttle. And then hold that line.
Hopefully you were able to see from that and then Buddy coming up here that the guys with the Quadra-Trac II system have to use more throttle to overcome the same obstacle.
You got it.
And this clip here, or this section of trail and this little obstacle is I think my favorite example between the two systems. Again, my Jeep Quadra-Drive II, watch this little gully, we all go through it, and how my Jeep handles it. Coming up here again is Raymond and Lee, also with the Quadra-Drive II system, same obstacle. Hopefully what you can see here in just a second is look at his rear passenger tire and notice that even when it comes up off the ground a little bit, the other wheel is able just to kind of match speed and keep going. As we said in our prior video, the Quadra-Drive II system, almost like you can't really tell it's working, you just kind of get through. Okay, now here are our Quadra-Trac II system folks.
Turn your tire driver a little. Good job. Yep. Turn on the driver. There you go. Don't worry about that clicking.
So I don't know if you guys could hear that, but Lauren mentions the popping sound, okay? We first heard that popping sound out in Sedona on Devil's Staircase, and I had never heard it before. We got in a situation where I had to really kind of hit the accelerator a little more, and then I heard this pop, pop, pop. So let's check that out. That doesn't sound good, man.
No, it doesn't.
I don't like that at all.
So, I don't know if you've been following us for a while, you may have seen that when it came out, and I threw it out to the forums. What in the world is going on here? I got all kinds of things, from a broken CV joint to something with the air suspension. A few folks agreed that perhaps it was the active braking system, but it was clear that nobody really knew. Later on then, while we were still in Sedona, I heard the same sound when one of our event attendees, Glenn, was going up an obstacle. So we'll show you that.
That must be the brakes. That's the same pop.
That is the brakes, yeah.
So I've heard that now, that sound probably about 4 different times in 4 different vehicles, and it always happens with the Quadra-Trac II section of the vehicle, where you have that active braking, and I believe it's happening when that system's it's like too much input is being received, too much power, and the system can't handle it, and then we get this pop, pop, pop. I don't know if that's brakes releasing or what's going on there. So if you get to that point, it might be a good time to just, if you don't immediately hear a resolution of that sound, probably not just hang on the throttle and keep getting that. I would back up, try to find a different line, but it seems to happen only when you're really pushing it, and that Quadra-Trac II is having a hard time getting you over an obstacle. So I don't think it's a destructive sound. I think it's built into the system, but also it doesn't seem to come along with success very much. So if it doesn't resolve, so if the system's not able to kind of push you through that, I wouldn't keep pounding the throttle. Okay, let me set up this next clip for you guys. So this is Dennis and his Jeep. So he again has the Quadra-Trac II, and he's trying to climb and again, it's difficult to tell in these videos perspective, but you can see when he lets off the throttle that he just starts slipping back. So he is trying to climb an incline in his Jeep, but every time he takes his foot off the brake and goes to apply throttle, he was slipping backwards. And again, because that Quadra-Trac II system, it's not instant, and hopefully that's what you're seeing, is that it's not like a seamless instant kick in. You need to give it time to kick in, you need to give it some extra throttle in order for it to kick in. And in this scenario, every time you tried to get it kind of going, it would just start to slip back. It just wants to slide, huh? Can you cut it back the way you came all the way? Or can you, like, oh, if you straighten your tire out now, a little bit to the left? Yeah. All right, try that and give it some sauce, I guess. A little bit, yeah. Come on, there you go, there you go. Now easy, yeah. Watch the trees, it gets tight. Okay, one more clip, and this was when we were doing Rubicon Ridge, and it started to get late, and it was a section of trail at the very end of Rubicon Ridge where we struggled in our Jeep to get past the day before. So once I recognized where we were, I was able to take a better line, but we had Buddy behind us in his Jeep with the Quadra-Trac II, and he just really struggled. So let's show you the footage from the day before when it was light out, and you can see exactly where we struggled. Hopefully you can see as we come up here, there's just a little bit of a step or a ledge up front that's large enough to kind of act as a wedge or a block to that front tire. And what we had to end up doing was backing up and kind of going a little bit more to the passenger side, closer to the tree, to get up and over. So when we saw that same obstacle the next day, I kind of knew which line we needed to take, and I was able to get through okay, but we weren't able to get Buddy through under his own power in his Quadra-Trac II. What we ended up having to do was actually kind of pull the winch out and tug him, and had it been light, we probably could have got through okay, but it was dark out, and so we weren't really able to look for different lines that maybe he would be okay. But it just really, I think, again, shows you that there is absolutely a difference between the Quadra-Trac II system and the Quadra-Drive II system. So whether you're in the market for a new Jeep and you're thinking, should I get the Quadra-Trac II, should I get Quadra-Trac I, which again doesn't have that low range gearing, or the Quadra-Drive II that has that limited slip in the back, which is able to control that wheel spin and the power much more effectively. In our experience, after doing lots of trails and taking lots of folks out off-road, it's very, very rare that regardless of system that people can't eventually get through. There's been just a handful of times where they weren't able to because of just how the system was performing. However, what is super consistent is that the folks with the Quadra-Trac II have to use more gas, more throttle, more power, get a little more creative about how they're getting through the same obstacles, whereas we're able to tackle stuff with our Quadra-Drive II system because it has that rear electronic limited slip differential. It just is able to kind of keep moseying along. So as far as what system you should get, or does it matter which system you have, I really feel like it's very much dependent on how much you go out off-road and what you're looking to tackle in your WK2. So there you go, guys. I hope that video was helpful and kind of showed you in the real world how these different systems behave. Leave a comment below if you've been rolling in a Quadra-Trac I or Quadra-Trac II, Quadra-Drive II. Let me know your experience out off-road. Also, I just wanted to mention again, if you guys have been watching us a while at home, if you enjoy our content, please consider becoming a patron. What's a patron, you might say? I'll put a link for it below towards the end of this video, but it's basically just a way that you guys at home can help support our channel. YouTube does not pay well, and obviously there's costs that go into these videos. So If you guys want to keep seeing stuff and you like what you see, consider becoming that supporter. We sure do appreciate it. Also, if you're not yet a subscriber, consider subscribing. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and we will see you again real soon. Oh man. Eating a lot of pizza lately. I probably shouldn't eat it, but we're home in Pennsylvania. I'm around my pizza shops, and that comfort food, man, I've been pounding pizza and it's not really agreeing with my digestive system.